Data shows that about half of 18 to 29-year-old adults in the U.S. still live with their parent. And while many parents are pleased that their nests aren't empty, maintaining healthy relationships with grown children who are entitled to the autonomy of adulthood can be difficult. Joining me today is Dr. Vincent Polite, a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist, to give us some advice on improving these relationships. And Dr. Polite, we've been chatting off camera. It's that dynamic of, maybe the adult children have been off on their own and they've come back to live with their parent or parents, or maybe it's still an ongoing situation. So how do we deal with that dynamic as opposed to when they were little toddlers and we could tell them what to do?
Well, the first thing we have to understand is that the dynamic of the relationship has changed. Your adult children, now it's better that you understand that you transition to an advisory role versus an authoritative role in their life. And it's still your home, so you can set the boundaries that you want, but you have to also respect them as adults and being independent.
Yeah, that's it. That we sometimes forget that whole relationship has kind of evolved as that adult child is probably working outside the home. They have their own friends, they have their own schedule. And how does that come into play to resolve those conflicts?
Well, a lot of times what happens is we tend to see people at a place and time and we stick them there. So we still see Tommy as our 11-year-old. So we want to maintain that that relationship with that 11-year-old, needing our input and things like that. So what you do when they move back home is you meet with them, you talk to them. Here's what I expect in my home, okay? And what is your input on it? And you come to a consensus, because after all, it is your home. And that's the key thing we have to understand. Everybody has a right to set boundaries in their home and expectations for their quality of life as well.
Right. So how do we kind of improve that communication? Do we sit down at the kitchen table with them and say, all right, here's, I don't think we want to say, here are the ground rules.
Make up a cohabitation plan, okay? And that gives everybody a choice in the matter. I don't want to move back home if I can't come in at 2 o'clock, maybe I need to find somewhere else. So we have to understand that both parties want their independence and their lifestyle honored in living together.
And that's probably where boundaries come in.
Right.
For the parent as well as the adult child.
Right. So, the adult child is struggling with now coming back home. Many times it's because of divorce or something like that. A life-altering event has occurred that makes them have to come back home. So they're in that mindset. They're dealing with whatever situation caused that. And now they have to adjust their lifestyle to move back home because the parents have an expectation living there.
Right. And now you mentioned this going from a directive to an advisory role. And I bet that's kind of tough for parents.
That is one of the biggest area of conflicts for adult children and parents. I have 3 adult children, and I had to learn very quickly to go from telling to advising.
Oh, that's the important words.
Yeah,
right.
And then learning to be okay with the choices and decisions that they make that may not be the way I would have done it.
Rather than using that phrase, well, what I think you should do is this, rather than what would be an alternative to bring that up.
I always say, well, do you want my input? I ask my kids that. Do you want dad's input? And I give them that choice for us to go further into the conversation. Because what I want to do is celebrate their independence, because I have to trust that what I did as a parent is in there.
And they're going to follow those.
Right, and they're going to follow those values.
Right.
And morals that were critical to our life together, to their upbringing. So that I have to see my work bear fruit, so to speak.
Absolutely. And as we quickly wrap up, what's maybe one more tip you can tell either the adult child or the parents?
The key, we're going to go back to the boundaries. The key is boundaries and expectations. If those are clearly defined, the relationship should go smoother. And when any conflict arises, you can go back to what you put in place. Say, here's what we discussed, here's what we expected, and we agreed upon.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for being here. And now we have the tools on how we can take the initiative and proactively improve relationships with our adult children. Thanks again.